On June 6, 2025, Pakistan's Ministry of Defense announced via its official X account that China has offered to supply the HQ-19 long-range missile defense system, Islamabad's largest strategic procurement from Beijing to date. Unveiled at the Zhuhai Air Show in November 2024, the HQ-19 is touted as capable of intercepting both traditional ballistic missiles and next-generation hypersonic glide vehicles. While the world watches this strategic export, a different race is underway. Imagine a weapon capable of traveling at more than 5 times the speed of sound, maneuvering unpredictably at altitudes between 20 and 80 kilometers, and reaching targets anywhere on the globe in minutes. Such hypersonic missiles, whether conventional or nuclear, pose a grave challenge to every missile defense network built around predictable ballistic trajectories. China's HQ-19 must prove itself against threats that arrive before the alarm even sounds. In recent years, the People's Liberation Army has invested heavily in modernizing its strategic capabilities, marrying a rapidly expanding missile arsenal with cutting-edge sensor networks and command centers. The HQ-19, unveiled at the Zhuhai Air Show in November 2024 after more than a decade of development, represents China's most ambitious effort to counter high-speed threats in both the upper atmosphere and space. Equipped with a phased-array X-band radar system mounted on a separate heavy truck and linked to an AI-driven combat cloud, it promises simultaneous tracking of dozens of targets at ranges claimed to exceed 4,000 kilometers. Yet hypersonic weapons are not conventional ballistic missiles. They glide through the atmosphere under aerodynamic lift, execute sharp or erratic maneuvers, and exploit a detection gap that lies below the optimal coverage of many space-based infrared satellites and above the effective range of most ground radars. At speeds exceeding Mach 5, the time from launch to impact can shrink so dramatically that decision cycles collapse from tens of minutes to just a few. Early warning constellations reliant on geostationary infrared sensors struggle to maintain continuous tracking, while over-the-horizon radars catch only fleeting blips on the edge of their coverage. To make matters more complex, most hypersonic systems, including China's DF-17 launcher, are dual-capable, able to carry either conventional explosives or nuclear warheads. When sensors detect an incoming glide vehicle, there is no way to immediately discern its payload. Every alert risks triggering worst-case strategic responses. In a fast-moving crisis, this ambiguity can precipitate rapid escalation or even spark an accidental nuclear exchange. Simulations run by Western think tanks show that without reliable discrimination, both sides might rush to launch on warning, turning a defensive alert into an offensive strike. At its core, the HQ-19 leverages hit-to-kill technology similar to the U.S. Terminal High-Altitude Area Defense System, yet with several key modifications aimed at counter-hypersonic performance. While THAAD interceptors measure roughly 6.2 meters in length and rely on separate launch and guidance radars spaced dozens of kilometers apart, the HQ-19's interceptors are slightly larger, approximately 7 meters long and half a meter in diameter, and adopt a cold launch mechanism that ejects the missile before the main engine ignites, improving safety and payload capacity. Its two-stage booster design and advanced N-15B propellant are intended to close the gap against gliding targets traveling at several kilometers per second. However, published specifications remain unverified, and real-world performance often reveals unforeseen limitations. Intercepting a hypersonic glide vehicle still requires extraordinary precision. Closing speeds approach several kilometers per second, leaving a narrow window for infrared or radar seekers to acquire and track the target. Laboratory tests conducted in wind tunnels and simulated flight corridors cannot fully replicate the electronic warfare environment of a peer conflict, where decoys, jamming, and cyber attacks can degrade sensor performance and seam integrity. China's strategic calculus does not end with a single defensive system. The HQ-19 is likely to be deployed alongside a network of undersea acoustic sensors, airborne early warning aircraft equipped with phased-array radar, and space-based infrared satellites, forming a constellation over the Pacific. All these assets feed data into artificial intelligence-driven command centers designed to fuse information, predict flight corridors, and cue interceptors. Research programs in Beijing are already exploring directed energy weapons, high-energy lasers capable of disabling missile fins or seeker windows, and autonomous orbited kill vehicles that could loiter in low Earth orbit, waiting for hypersonic threats to emerge from behind the horizon. The global implications of this evolving interplay between offensive hypersonic weapons and missile defense systems extend far beyond China's borders. The United States, Russia, India, and smaller powers like Australia and Japan are racing to field both hypersonic strike capabilities and counter-hypersonic defenses. In August 2024, the U.S. Army tested its own counter-hypersonic interceptor under the Enduring Shield program, while Russia claimed successful trials of its S-500 air defense system against Mach glide vehicles. Each side seeks a breakthrough that might restore a credible conventional or nuclear deterrent. Arms control frameworks have so far struggled to keep pace with these technological leaps. The Outer Space Treaty and New START agreements do not explicitly address hypersonic glide vehicles or the sensor constellations needed to track them. Negotiations in Geneva have stalled over verification challenges. How do you count and constrain vehicles that spend most of their flight below outer space yet above sovereign airspace? Without new norms or confidence-building measures, every launch risks misinterpretation. Every test risks escalation. Ultimately, the question of whether the HQ-19 can reliably stop hypersonic and nuclear strikes depends on a host of variables. The maturity and redundancy of China's sensor networks, the true reliability and accuracy of interceptors in contested environments, the effectiveness of AI-driven command and control, and the adversary's ability to innovate countermeasures or overwhelm defenses by massed attack cells. Even if Beijing succeeds in fielding a limited capability against select threats, the offense will likely adapt in turn, driving a continuous cycle of measure and countermeasure that reshapes strategic stability. Beyond the technical hurdles, the HQ-19 program faces budgetary and logistical constraints. Each interceptor missile reportedly costs millions of dollars, and maintaining a fleet of launchers, radars, support vehicles, and personnel across bases requires sustained investment. In war games conducted by PLA analysts, reliability rates below 70% during high-tempo operations could undermine strategic deterrence. Political factors also influence deployment. Stationing advanced missile defense batteries near contested islands in the South China Sea signals resolve but risks escalation with neighboring claimants and U.S. forces patrolling the region. Moreover, training rocket crews and radar operators to respond within seconds to hypersonic alerts demands rigorous exercises and resilient communication links. Allied nations watch closely. Japan and Australia consider co-developing complementary sensors and countermeasures, while NATO evaluates whether such systems could integrate into a future joint missile shield. In the ever-accelerating arms race of the 21st century, the HQ-19 may represent China's most credible bid to blunt the speed and stealth of nascent hypersonic weapons, but is far from a silver bullet. Hypersonic glide vehicles and nuclear-armed cruise missiles will continue to push the boundaries of velocity, maneuverability, and low observable technology, challenging defenders to innovate across domains, from undersea to outer space. As Beijing rolls out its latest missile defense architecture, the world will be watching and preparing for the next twist in a conflict defined by velocity and uncertainty. As the HQ-19 begins to enter service and finds its way into allied arsenals such as Pakistan's, one thing is clear. The race between hypersonic offense and missile defense is only just heating up. Whether through advanced sensors, AI-driven fire control, or even directed energy weapons, defenders will keep innovating, but so will those who design the missiles. So, here's the question for you. Do you think China's HQ-19 can truly foil a hypersonic or nuclear strike, or will the next generation of offensive weapons always stay one step ahead? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.